Black Belt asked a black woman to fight as a joke, but what she did next silenced the entire gym. At a Portland dojo, head instructor Logan Rivers challenged quiet mother Eleanor Marks, expecting to humiliate her in front of everyone. Instead, the room fell silent as she revealed her mastery, effortlessly dodging his aggressive attacks and exposing his lack of control. Logan's arrogance crumbled, forcing him to confront his own bias. That day transformed the dojo's culture. Students learned that real strength comes from respect and humility. Malik, Eleanor's son, stood taller with pride. Logan, humbled, began to listen and change. The woman he tried to embarrass became the model of true discipline and courage for them all. In a bustling martial arts studio in Portland, Oregon, head instructor Logan Rivers holds court with fierce authority. The walls of Rivers Martial Arts Academy thrum with energy. The rhythmic slap of bare feet on polished floors echoes with each kata drill. Punching bag swing as students practice combinations, the air sharp with sweat and focus. Parents line the edge of the mat on narrow benches, whispering encouragement to their kids, eyes fixed on the disciplined choreography before them. At the center of it all stands Logan Rivers. He's a tall, broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair and a commanding voice that silences chatter in an instant. He walks the rows like a general inspecting his troops, barking corrections, praising favored students with hearty slaps on the back. Good form, Ethan, he bellows, beaming at the fair-skinned boy executing a perfect roundhouse. Then his eyes narrow as they land on Malik, a lean, serious 13-year-old with dark skin and deep brown eyes that gleam with a mix of concentration and worry. Malik, Logan calls, drawing out the name just enough to add an edge. Again. Faster. Come on, you have to work twice as hard. That's just reality. Malik flinches slightly, face tightening. He obeys without complaint, launching the kick again, a little off balance from nerves. Logan shakes his head theatrically and turns to the class. See? Discipline, everyone. Discipline and natural ability. Not everyone has it. Some of the parents murmur, eyes darting toward Malik's mother, Eleanor, who sits quietly at the edge of the bench. She's in her late 30s, with calm eyes that seem to take in everything. She doesn't react, but her fingers tighten around her water bottle until the plastic creaks. Eleanor watches Malik's shoulders sag. She sees the small tremor in his exhale. She's seen it before, how a boy who loved martial arts is starting to dread it. Logan moves on, praising a pair of favored students. He jokes easily with them, slapping their gloves together, making them laugh. But he keeps glancing at Eleanor with a flicker of something that's hard to miss: challenge, dismissal, disdain. The class ends with bows. Respect, Logan intones, but the word feels hollow. Parents clap politely. Eleanor stands and beckons Malik, who gathers his bag without looking up. Ready? She asks softly. He nods, not meeting her gaze. As they leave, she hears Logan's voice at her back, just loud enough. Some people just aren't cut out for this, huh? Laughter from a few students follows. Eleanor's jaw clenches. She turns, meets Logan's eyes. He holds her stare a second too long, then smirks and walks off. The dojo is not just a place to train anymore. It's a theater of humiliation, prejudice cleverly disguised as tough love. Eleanor feels the weight of every parent's side-eye, every whispered comment about discipline and standards. Malik is quiet all the way home. That silence sits in the car like a third passenger, thick and heavy. Eleanor doesn't press him. She knows the words she needs to say aren't for now, but she also knows she's not going to let it go. 2 days later, the dojo is buzzing. Flyers for the upcoming student showcase have gone up on the corkboard. Parents talk excitedly about demonstrations, belt promotions, and Logan's reputation for delivering a thrilling show. Eleanor sits on the bench again, arms folded, watching the warm-ups. Malik is quieter than ever, his energy gone, going through the motions. Logan circles the mat, eyes glittering as they lock onto Eleanor. Okay, everyone, he calls, clapping his hands for silence. Let's talk about the showcase. We're going to show the whole city what real martial arts look like, what real discipline is. He paces theatrically, basking in the attention. I think we'll do a special exhibition match, he says, voice dripping with faux innocence. Just to demonstrate what separates trained fighters from, well, casual observers. He turns toward Eleanor deliberately. What do you say, Miss Marks? He asks, voice polite but mocking. Care to step onto the mat? Just for fun? Show us what you've got. The room goes silent. Heads turn. Malik freezes. Eleanor doesn't move at first. Her eyes narrow slightly, studying Logan's smug grin. I think the students should be the focus, she replies evenly. Logan's smile widens, shark-like. Ah, come on. Don't be shy, he goads. You've been here every day, watching. I think everyone would love to see what you can do. Unless, he lets the word hang there. Whispers spread among the students. Is she scared? Someone says, not quite quietly enough. Malik turns to his mother, eyes wide with confusion and, worse, hurt. Logan senses blood in the water. Look, folks, he says, gesturing grandly. Martial arts is about testing yourself, facing your fears. Isn't that right? Don't we all agree? The parents nod hesitantly, uncomfortable but swayed by his authority. Eleanor feels a heat rising in her chest. She glances at Malik and sees it, the way his shoulders slump even further, the way his eyes flicker with shame. She knows what's happening. Logan isn't offering a fun demo. He's setting a trap. He wants to humiliate her publicly, to reinforce the idea that she, and by extension her son, don't belong here. She weighs her options. She can refuse. She can keep her dignity. But what does that teach Malik? That it's better to stay silent? To accept being diminished? She closes her eyes briefly, breathes, then opens them and fixes Logan with a calm, unreadable stare. This is supposed to be a place of learning, she says quietly but firmly. Not a circus. Logan leans in. Don't be scared, Ms. Marks. It's all in good fun. Unless you think you'll get hurt. The room titters. Malik's face flushes red. He opens his mouth to say something but closes it again, mortified. That's the final blow. Eleanor straightens, her spine steel. Fine, she says softly. Logan blinks. She repeats it, louder this time. Fine. I accept. A hush falls over the room. Logan's smirk falters for a split second before returning, this time with cruel glee. Excellent, he says. Excellent. We'll make it the main event. Malik stares at his mother, shocked. She glances at him, her eyes softening just for him. This ends, she thinks. Right here. The dojo suddenly feels different. The tension isn't hidden anymore. It's humming in the air, visible in every sidelong glance, every whispered bit about who will be humiliated. But Eleanor isn't backing down. She's just getting started. The house is silent except for the slow tick of the old wall clock and the gentle patter of Portland rain against the windows. Eleanor Marks sits alone on her worn sofa, elbows on her knees, head bowed. A single lamp in the corner casts long shadows around her. On the coffee table rests a small wooden box, its brass latch glinting in the dim light. She reaches out and opens it with deliberate care. Inside lie the relics of another life. Battered MMA gloves, scuffed and faded from wars in the cage, a few medals on fraying ribbons, and an old magazine clipping that reads The Midnight Gale. Unbeatable, untouchable. Her own face stares back, young and fierce-eyed, jaw set in the certainty of someone who never backed down. Her fingers brush over the photo. She remembers that woman. The champion who trained in freezing gyms, who silenced crowds with brutal efficiency, who demanded respect with every punch. But she also remembers the bruises that never healed properly, the cautious way she smiled at press conferences to avoid being called angry, the snide remarks about being too emotional, too aggressive. She remembers the night she walked away for good. Malik was barely a year old, fast asleep in her arms. A replay of her last fight played on TV, her hand raised in victory, her face a mask of cuts and swelling. She decided then he would never see her like that. She wanted him to know safety, stability, peace. But today had shattered that fragile hope. She saw Logan Rivers for what he was, a bully with power. Someone who used his authority to make kids like Malik feel small. She'd seen her son's eyes darken with shame. She'd heard the laughter at her expense. Eleanor closes the box and leans back on the sofa, staring at the cracked ceiling. Silence presses in, thick and suffocating. She breathes in slowly, filling her lungs with determination she thought she'd buried. Then she stands. She walks softly down the hall to Malik's room. The door is cracked open, and she watches him sleep, his face slack with innocent dreams. She remembers the way he used to bounce onto the dojo mat, eager and bright-eyed, desperate to show her every new move. Today, he couldn't even meet her gaze. Her heart twists. She whispers so low only she can hear it. I won't let him do this to you. Outside, thunder rumbles in the distance. Morning comes gray and heavy with rain. Eleanor dresses slowly, deliberately. She pulls on old black track pants and a fitted zip-up hoodie, zipping it to her throat like armor. In the mirror, she ties her hair back into a tight ponytail and studies her reflection. She doesn't see the tired mother Logan wants everyone to see. She sees the midnight Gale, older, maybe, but unbroken. In the kitchen, Malik sits at the table, staring at his cereal, stirring it in circles. "Mom," he asks quietly. She gives him a small, unwavering smile. "Eat up," she says, voice calm. "We've got somewhere to be." When they arrive at the dojo, the air changes instantly. Conversations falter. Parents' eyes flick toward them. Students freeze mid-kick. Logan is behind the front desk, laughing with one of the assistant instructors. He turns as the door opens, and his smile falters just for a second before returning, all teeth and false charm. "Ms. Marks," he drawls, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't expect you back so soon." She doesn't bother with pleasantries. She walks straight onto the mat, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "I'm accepting your challenge," she says evenly. A hush spreads like wildfire. Every head turns. Kids pause, breath held. Parents lean forward, eyes wide with curiosity and disbelief. Logan's eyebrows lift. His grin widens, full of mockery. "Oh, really?" He laughs softly. Well, looks like the showcase just got interesting." A ripple of laughter moves through the room, unsure and a little cruel. Malik grips his bag, eyes locked on his mother with shock and something like fear. Logan claps his hands together as if sealing a deal. "Everyone, big news," he announces, voice booming with theatrical glee. "Eleanor Marks has agreed to our special exhibition. Make sure you don't miss it. It's going to be enlightening." A few parents chuckle. Some look uncomfortable. But Eleanor doesn't flinch. She holds Logan's gaze, steady and cold. And for a heartbeat, in the glint of his eyes, she sees it. Not triumph. Fear. Because he doesn't know who she really is. Not yet. But he will. Portland's morning fog hung thick over the riverfront, ghostly tendrils creeping through empty streets. Eleanor pulled her hood tight against the damp chill and began to run. Her breath came in steady clouds, each footfall on the wet path sending ripples across shallow puddles. The city was hushed at this hour, the world pared down to her heartbeat and the rhythm of her strides. She ran with purpose. Each mile burned away doubt. The humiliation at the dojo replayed in her head. Logan's mocking grin, the forced laughter from parents who should have known better, Malik's downcast eyes. She pressed harder, pushing up the slight incline of the trail until her lungs ached. When she finally stopped, she bent over with her hands on her knees, steam rising from her body. She looked out at the river, its dark current steady and indifferent, and drew in one long, calming breath before turning back toward home. That night, the garage became her sanctuary. She pulled the heavy door shut behind her and flipped on the overhead light, casting stark illumination over the concrete floor. Just hung in the air. Old training mats lay stacked in the corner, relics from a life she'd promised herself she'd left behind. She stood in front of the warped mirror, pulling tape around her wrists with deliberate care. When she was ready, she planted her feet and raised her fists. Her reflection stared back, older, lined around the eyes, but harder too. She moved slowly at first, testing the weight of her own body, her hips swiveling in smooth arcs. Then the pace quickened. She jabbed, crossed, ducked under imaginary counters. The air sliced around her fists. The sound of her exhalations filled the space, sharp and even. She pivoted, reversed, executed a spinning back fist with perfect control, the muscle memory returning like an old friend. Sweat darkened her shirt. She didn't need an audience. She didn't need applause. This was for Malik. For every look on his face that told her he thought silence was safer than speaking up. She trained until her shoulders burned and her calves trembled. Meanwhile, at the dojo, Logan held court like a self-appointed king. He leaned against the front desk, arms crossed, recounting the scene for anyone who'd listen. She actually said yes, he told the assistant instructor, grinning wide. Can you believe it? I'll have to go easy on her so she doesn't embarrass herself too badly. A few students laughed on cue. Others shifted uncomfortably but stayed quiet. The toxic certainty in Logan's voice was enough to silence them. During class, he drilled them hard, constantly using Eleanor as the punchline to his lessons. Discipline matters, he snapped. If you don't train like this, you'll end up flailing around like our guest star next week. Malik stood at the edge of the mat, arms folded tight. His cheeks burned every time someone snickered. He tried to avoid Logan's eyes, but he could feel them lingering with a kind of cruel delight. But at home, something had shifted. When Eleanor returned from her late-night training, she was quiet, but not defeated. She washed her hands in the sink methodically, as if cleansing not just the sweat but the weight of what lay ahead. Malik watched from the table, eyes narrowing. She didn't snap at him when he asked if she was okay. She just nodded, calm and composed, and told him to finish his homework. He couldn't explain it, but she seemed different. There was no rage in her voice. No fear, either. Just an eerie, implacable calm that made him both uneasy and hopeful. And still she trained. Every dawn, she ran along the river until her breath rattled. Every night, the garage light burned late into the darkness as she worked combinations, practiced footwork, perfected balance. She didn't tell anyone what she was doing. She didn't need to. Outside, the city went on, oblivious. But in one small garage, a woman who had once terrified opponents in packed arenas was remembering exactly who she was. She wasn't preparing to win applause. She was preparing to remind them, especially Logan, what real mastery looked like. The dojo hummed with electric tension, every seat filled long before the showcase began. Flyers had promised an exhibition match unlike any other, and the crowd delivered. Parents sat clutching paper cups of burnt coffee, kids in crisp GIs wriggled on benches, and even a local news team had set up a small tripod, the red light on their camera blinking steadily. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting the polished wooden floor in bright, unforgiving clarity. Framed photos of past classes lined the walls, smiling students with yellow, green, brown belts frozen in time, watching from their frames. Today, though, all eyes were on the mat. Logan Rivers emerged first from the locker room. He wore his black belt with practiced arrogance, the ends trailing behind him like banners. He raised a gloved hand in greeting, and the audience offered polite applause. A smirk curled on his lips as he circled the edge of the mat, soaking up the attention. "Big day," he called. "Glad you're all here to learn something real today." A ripple of laughter followed. His favorite students beamed with pride. Others shifted uncomfortably, remembering too well his harsh corrections and mocking tone. He turned to his assistant coach and slapped him on the back. "Keep the clock running. This won't take long." And then the murmurs began to hush as the door to the changing area opened. Eleanor Marks stepped out. No dramatic music played. She didn't raise her hands or smile for the cameras. She walked with slow, deliberate calm, each step measured, spine straight. She wore plain black training pants and a dark gray rash guard, hair pulled into a severe braid. The crowd fell silent watching her approach. She climbed onto the mat without fanfare and turned to face Logan. She didn't bother to bow extravagantly, simply nodded once in acknowledgement of the ritual. Her eyes were unreadable, her breathing slow and even. If Logan felt any unease, he buried it beneath a mocking grin. "Ready, Marks?" he taunted. She didn't answer. "Come on now, don't be shy," he goaded, stepping forward and raising his guard in a sloppy showman's pose for the cameras. The assistant coach clapped once. "Begin." Logan lunged without hesitation. He opened with a wild, looping punch meant to frighten more than connect. Eleanor pivoted, letting it sail past her ear as if she were dancing with a drunk man. She didn't counter yet. She waited. Logan attacked again, this time with a snapping front kick that was all muscle and no balance. Eleanor turned her body just enough to let it glance harmlessly past, brushing her side. She could feel the air from it. The room filled with whispers. Did she dodge that? She didn't even move much. Logan's brow furrowed. His grin slipped for the first time. He threw a flurry of punches, heavy and fast, but sloppy. Eleanor's feet glided over the mat, weight balanced perfectly. She dipped under a hook, spun past a cross, and patted his shoulder lightly as she slipped by, like tagging a friend in the street. Logan stumbled. The onlookers gasped. Even the camera operator leaned forward. He roared and turned, swinging with his full weight. Eleanor leaned back just far enough to avoid the blow, then rotated her hips and delivered a short, precise strike to his ribs. The sound of her glove hitting the pad beneath his GI cracked through the dojo like a gunshot. Logan wheezed, clutching his side. She waited for him to recover. She didn't press the advantage, just stared calmly, her eyes boring into him. He glared, chest heaving. "Cheap shot," he spat. She didn't reply. He roared again and charged, aiming to tackle her to the floor. Eleanor stepped aside, let him barrel past, and kicked his ankle as he passed, sending him sprawling onto all fours. The crowd fell completely silent. Logan pushed himself up, face red, sweat dripping from his forehead. He turned slowly to see Eleanor waiting for him, gloves loose at her sides, breathing steady and slow. He bellowed in frustration and charged again, but his movements were ragged now, his guard sloppy. He swung too wide. This time, Eleanor didn't just dodge. She struck. A quick, efficient combination, 2 hits to the midsection, a hook to the jaw, and a leg sweep that sent him crashing to the mat on his back. He lay there gasping, staring at the ceiling. The dojo was silent, but for the sound of his labored breathing. Eleanor didn't gloat. She didn't raise her fists. She simply offered her hand to help him up. He stared at it, breathing hard, the shame turning his face an angry purple. The assistant coach started to speak, but fell silent when Eleanor shot him a look. Slowly, Logan reached out and took her hand. She pulled him to his feet with one smooth motion. He didn't meet her eyes at first, but he had no choice. The parents, the kids, the news camera, all of them watched, waiting. Finally, voice cracking, Logan swallowed and said, I'm sorry. I was wrong. One of the older students in the crowd whispered, that was her move, from those old fights. That's the midnight gale. Recognition rippled through the room. Whispers turned to hushed awe. Logan's gaze fell. His arrogance collapsed in front of everyone. Eleanor didn't smile. She kept her voice calm but strong. This isn't the end, she said. It's the start. Respect doesn't come from fear. It comes from honesty, humility, and understanding. Logan nodded mutely. She released his hand and turned away, stepping off the mat, meeting Malik's wide eyes with the faintest of smiles. Around them, the dojo buzzed in stunned silence. No one quite knew what to say, but everyone knew everything had just changed. The dojo felt different now, as if the walls themselves were breathing easier. The smell of sweat and old mats lingered, but the tension that used to make the air heavy was gone. Instead, there was a quiet anticipation, a curiosity about what might come next. In the days after the showcase, the story of what happened spread through town like wildfire. Parents whispered about it in line at grocery stores. Students reenacted the final takedown in playgrounds. Even the local news clip of Eleanor helping Logan to his feet made the rounds on social media, sparking heated debates in the comments. Logan Rivers had felt the humiliation burn in him for days. He replayed the match in his head every night, the sting of her strikes, the way she seemed to move without effort while he flailed. But the thing that cut deepest was the way she'd offered him her hand when it was over. She hadn't needed to beat him like that. She wanted him to see. And he had. He found himself alone in his office more often than usual, staring at the schedule board, his old trophies, the photo of his first class all those years ago when he'd sworn to teach kids self-discipline and focus. Somewhere along the way, that promise had twisted into something crueler. It was Eleanor who knocked on his door one afternoon, a week after the match. She didn't wait for him to invite her in. She just pushed it open and stood there, arms crossed. Logan looked up, shame prickling his skin. "What do you want?" he muttered. "I'm not here to gloat," she said flatly. He let out a bitter laugh. "Well, you've got every right." Eleanor didn't smile. She didn't even move. She just stared at him until the silence grew heavy. Finally, he sighed. "What do you want, Eleanor?" "I want you to fix this place," she said. "Because these kids deserve better." He blinked at her, anger flaring for a second before dying out. "You think I don't know that?" he said quietly. She shrugged. "If you know it, then do something about it." He dropped his gaze. "I don't know how." Her voice softened, just a fraction. "Then let me help." Logan's throat felt tight. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "Yeah," he said. "Okay." That was the beginning. They started with the curriculum. Sitting at the old folding table in his office, they pored over schedules, drills, and grading criteria late into the night. Eleanor tore it apart. "This is garbage," she said, pushing a printout across the table. Logan bristled. "I wrote that." "Yeah, I can tell." He glared at her, but she didn't flinch. She leaned forward. "You're training them to attack without thinking. You're teaching them fear." He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it. She was right. "Fine," he growled. "Show me." She did. They rebuilt the program from the ground up. Logan suggested conditioning drills. Eleanor added flow and control work. He proposed sparring rotations. She insisted on mindfulness exercises. They argued constantly, their voices carrying through the thin walls of the dojo, but they always came back to the table. Word got around that changes were coming. Some parents threatened to pull their kids. Logan had to explain himself over and over, his voice cracking with unaccustomed honesty. One mother sneered. She humiliated you. Now you're just going to let her run the place. Logan swallowed hard. She's trying to make it better, he said. The woman left in a huff, and Logan sank onto the bench outside the office, rubbing his face with shaking hands. Eleanor sat down beside him. Good answer, she said. He didn't reply, but he didn't get up and leave, either. Their first joint class was chaos. Kids didn't know what to make of Eleanor at first. She was quiet, but her gaze seemed to pin them in place. She demonstrated moves slowly, breaking them down into pieces. Balance isn't just about staying up, she told them. It's about knowing where you stand. Logan watched from the edge of the mat, arms folded. He caught Malik staring at Eleanor, eyes wide and shining with something like hope. Malik had been different too. He stayed after class to help sweep. He asked questions. He even laughed once during drills, something Logan realized he hadn't seen in months. One evening, Logan found Malik alone in the changing room, tying his belt with shaking hands. You okay, kid? Logan asked gruffly. Malik blinked at him. I don't want to mess up. Logan hesitated, then crouched down. Messing up is part of learning, he said. Your mom taught me that. Malik's eyes went round. He nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Logan patted his shoulder awkwardly before standing and heading out. Parents started to notice the changes. A father who had once avoided eye contact with Logan approached him after class. My son says he feels safe here now, he said, voice rough. Logan swallowed. I'm glad. The man hesitated, then extended his hand. Thank you. Logan took it, squeezing hard. Eleanor heard about it later and just raised an eyebrow at Logan. Don't let it go to your head, she muttered. He smirked. No danger of that. They trained the kids differently now. Sparring was slower, more deliberate. They taught de-escalation. They taught when not to hit. Eleanor was brutal about form. You're fighting yourself, she snapped at a teenage boy who kept losing balance. Stop fighting yourself. But her praise was equally fierce. That's it, she told a girl who landed her first clean block. Beautiful. Do it again. Logan found himself mimicking her style, even catching himself correcting a kid gently when he slipped. You okay? Logan asked when the kid sniffled. Yeah, the boy mumbled. Good, Logan said. Try again. He felt Eleanor watching him from the corner, arms folded. She didn't say anything, but the hint of a smile tugged at her lips. They spent late nights writing new rules for the dojo. Rule 1. Respect yourself and your partner. Rule 2. Control before power. Rule 3. No one gets left behind. They printed them on a giant poster and taped it to the wall. Kids read it before every class. Parents read it too. Word spread. Students who had quit returned. New families signed up. Logan couldn't believe it when they had to open a wait list. One night, after class, Logan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Eleanor help Malik with a particularly tricky lock. Malik was grinning ear to ear. Logan felt something warm in his chest. He cleared his throat. Thanks, he said quietly. Eleanor didn't look up. Don't thank me, she replied. Thank him. She nodded at Malik. Logan blinked hard. Yeah, he said softly. They cleaned up in silence that night, the sounds of brooms on mats the only noise. They didn't need to talk. They both knew they'd done something worth doing. On the final day of the season, the dojo held a new kind of showcase. No fights, no humiliations, just demonstrations. Kids worked in pairs, showing off footwork, blocks, takedowns that ended with respectful bows. Parents clapped, beaming. Logan stood at the edge of the mat in his black GI, watching them all. Eleanor joined him, her arms folded. Not bad, she said. He huffed a laugh. Yeah, not bad at all. When it was over, Logan called everyone to gather. He cleared his throat. This dojo is about learning, he said. His voice wavered, but he didn't stop. And I've learned more this year than I ever did in all my time teaching. Because of her. He gestured at Eleanor. She looked at the floor, shaking her head, but she didn't walk away. She taught me what strength really is, Logan continued. It's not about hitting the hardest. It's about knowing when you're wrong and fixing it. He paused. It's about listening. The kids were silent. The parents too. Logan's voice dropped. It's about respect. He turned to Eleanor. Thank you. She finally looked up, meeting his eyes. Don't waste it, she said simply. He smiled. I won't. They bowed to each other. The entire dojo bowed with them. And when they rose, the room felt new. A place not for fear or arrogance, but for possibility, for growth, for respect, and for hope. If you enjoyed this story about Eleanor, Logan, and Malik, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments what you think about how their journey ended and how the dojo transformed. Rate the story on a scale of 1 to 10 and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your thoughts, and your location helps us know how far this story is reaching. Join us for more inspiring stories and discussions.